The honourable member for Cardston, Tabor, Warner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is an honour to rise today and speak to the 29th Legislative Assembly of Alberta. Since May, when I was first elected, it has been a profound privilege to stand here on behalf of the men and women of my constituency. Cardston Tabor Warner is an incredible place to live, and I am honoured to live there. It's the most southwestern part of Alberta, right up against the U.S. border. Many of the towns and municipalities trace their heritage to the end of the 19th century. It is a place where a man or a woman could come with a dream. All they needed was $10 and a willingness to work the land and make something of it. It's the same entrepreneurial spirit and can-do attitude that has made our province so great for so long. It is also home to the largest First Nations reserve in Canada, the Blood Reserve, which was established under Treaty 7. I am thankful for their rich culture and their contributions to our communities and for the opportunity to work with them and to learn from them. Cardston is home to the Cardston Alberta Temple, one of Canada's designated National Historic Sites. On the east end of my riding, one can taste the world's best corn. The Tabor area, which has a phenomenal irrigation system, boasts the highest heat units in Alberta, which makes it an ideal place to grow world-class produce. On the west side of the riding sits one of the forgotten gems of Alberta, Waterton Lakes National Park. With its beautiful mountain trails and cascading waterfalls, Waterton is one of the most beautiful places on earth. My constituency is a remarkable place, and it's an honor to represent it. I chose to run, Mr. Speaker, for election because I honestly believe that Alberta is the best place to live. I attended university down in the United States. But when that period of my life was over, there was little question in my mind about where I wanted to settle down, about where I wanted to start a business, and where I wanted to raise my family. Next month, my first grandson will be celebrating his first birthday. When he grows up, I hope he sees Alberta as the same land of promise and opportunity that so many of us have seen for so long. I would hope he chooses to settle in our province not because it was where he was from and where his roots were from, but because it is Alberta, a land strong and free. In my career, I built and ran numerous businesses, from startups to large enterprises, to the residential and commercial construction company my dad, Roy, and I operated over the past decade. Over the years, I saw firsthand what policies were that gave Alberta that advantage, and I saw firsthand the impact of policies that took it away. Throughout the last decade, a slow and growing cobweb of thick red tape and increased government size began building up, and any sense of responsibility has fallen under the long shadow of a shameless descent into debt and deficits. If we are to pursue an irresponsible high tax regime, one filled with debts and deficits, it may take more than a generation to undo this mess. There are jurisdictions here in Canada that can reveal what that looks like. Ontario now spends $1 billion on interest payments to service their debts each and every month. That's one of the largest line items in their budget. They spend more on servicing their debt than they do on post-secondary education. It is my sincere hope that we halt our descent towards that path. If Albertans manage their finances like this, government, they would soon be bankrupt and homeless. I am thankful to have a place here among my fellow Conservatives in the Wild Rose Caucus. I'm a Conservative because I believe in the worth and dignity of every person, that no matter who you are, where you came from, what you were, or where you were born into, every individual has worth and value. That's the compassion of the heart of conservatism. That every individual should be free to pursue opportunities, free to pursue their own goals and to raise their own family, free over overbearing governments, and free to save or invest their own earnings as they best see fit. The freedom that, no matter where anyone started, every individual can pursue their own livelihood and their own destiny. But we cannot truly be Alberta, strong and free, if there is a segment of the population for whom all of these freedoms and opportunities are out of reach. When we talk about jobs and the economy, we're talking about how to prevent serious social problems like poverty and homelessness, the myriad of personal and family problems that come from bankruptcy and depression, and other illnesses that can result from not having a job or from losing a business. One of the greatest fallacies of the last century has been that such problems can be solved through heavy-handed government spending. Look at the United States, for example, which has spent between $15 and $20 trillion over the 50 years on a war on poverty, and yet the poverty rate has barely changed. This fallacy of government spending is a recurring one, especially in the circles that many members of the current government seem to find themselves in. I note that the Premier and others on the government benches are no strangers to the Broadbent Institute events. A few days ago, I was surprised to see a media report that former federal NDP leader Ed Broadbent had claimed in a speech that much of the inequality we see today is a direct result of austerity budgets in the mid-1990s when the federal government of the day sought to balance the budget and pay off the debt. It's a peculiar claim, Mr. Speaker. The time when average wages barely grew, family incomes fell, and poverty was in double digits was actually in the preceding period to the 1990s. The share of the national population below the low-income cutoff line has been generally declining over the past 20 years. In fact, when Statistics Canada brought out their Income of Canadians report a few years ago, it showed that fewer Canadians were below the poverty line, the low-income cutoff, than ever before. The trend was generally mirrored in Alberta, where the low-income number was in double digits during the early 1990s, but then steadily declined downward, dropping even below 6% at one point. In recent years, many left-leaning groups had put out studies that income inequality was worse in Alberta than anywhere else in Canada. To this, I can only quote former British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, who said, quote, "So long as the gap is smaller, they would rather have the poor poorer. You do not create wealth and opportunity that way. You do not create a property-owning democracy that way," end quote. The reality, as we know, Mr. Speaker, is that for years upon years, Canadians from every province and territory came to Alberta because there was jobs and there was opportunity. When their own provinces suffered job losses and no opportunities, they chose Alberta. Why? Because we were doing something different here, and something good. It's a status we should be working to regain. I know that many of the government's pursuits, especially as they pertain to Alberta's energy industry, are predicated upon the idea of social license. It's a concept that has come up repeatedly through modern history in numerous iterations. I'm reminded of a certain quotation from the 19th century that underlies it. Quote, "Even in a whole society, a nation, or even all simultaneously existing societies taken together are not the owners of the globe. They are only its possessors, and they must hand it down to succeeding generations in an improved condition," end quote. That, of course, was from Karl Marx in the Communist Manifesto, a text that, for all of its good intentions, has led to immense suffering throughout the 20th century and even today. It's an extreme example, but frankly, recent centuries in human history are filled with suffering as a result of brazen, blinded pursuits of ideological goals by governments. It's why we're so opposed to this government's social engineering experiment. I'm a conservative because I believe in results-oriented solutions. No matter how well-intentioned all government programs and initiatives need to be accountable to Albertans. We work for everyday Albertans, and we owe it to them that their tax dollars are used wisely, and that their elected officials are not passing initiatives that will actually harm them. I looked forward to hearing the government speech from the throne, but was disappointed to find that the government was only offering more words, not practical solutions. The throne speech failed to address the NDP's failed job subsidy program, which has created zero jobs. This new legislation offers no concrete solutions, and as such is an affront to the tens of thousands of Albertans who are out of work. This session, Wild Rose will be focused on delivering positive alternative solutions to get Albertans back working again, such as reducing small business taxes, providing relief for families in need, and stability for our energy sector. One such solution was the Wild Rose Jobs Plan. which I had an opportunity to work on, which gives specifics on how to stop the bleeding that's happening in our province's suffering labor market. It is my sincere hope that this government looks to implement these recommendations. In a prominent place in my home, Mr. Speaker, hangs my favorite picture. In this picture, one can see a man standing in the doorway of a lighthouse while a storm rages all around him. One is drawn to the picture, and at first he is awed by the size of the waves that are crashing around the lighthouse. However, as you look closer, you are drawn to the man's face. You notice that this man is calm. How could he be so calm in such a raging storm? He is calm because he knows what that lighthouse's foundation is made of. He is calm because he knows, as in times past, that his lighthouse will weather the storm well. He is calm because he knows the sun will come out again and that the winds and the waves will subside. This picture has hung in my home for close to 15 years, and I have had many moments to think upon it. What if the lighthouse's foundation were to be undermined? I am sure the man would not be so confident. In fact, I doubt he would even stay in the lighthouse. These days, Alberta's new canvas has me, and quite frankly, many of my fellow Albertans questioning, is the foundation of Alberta strong and secure? Is it a place that can weather the storms? We have seen the storms of low oil, and we have weathered them well. But this new tumultuous storm, aka the NDP government's policies, well, we will just have to see if we survive this one. On the adjacent wall of my house, on my home, hangs pictures of my family, my wife Angie and my 5 children, my son-in-law, and my 11-month-old grandson. As a father, it is my responsibility to try and provide my family and future generations with a bright future. The storms of life will come and go, my friends, but let us not be the creators of those storms. Let us instead create a place where all people can come and realize their dreams. In closing, I again extend my heartfelt thank you to my constituents in Cardston, Taber-Warner for electing me to represent them here. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.